In the small, quiet town of Brooksville, Marcus Turner was the kind of man everyone knew and respected. He was the steady, reliable heart of the community, a man who found his purpose not in ambition or wealth, but in the simple, profound act of helping others. At 35, he had settled into a life that, while simple, was filled with a deep and quiet contentment. But on one ordinary evening, a simple act of kindness on a lonely road would set in motion a chain of events so extraordinary, so mysterious, that it would change his life and the lives of everyone around him forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, let us know in the comments below where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy this tale of unexpected twists and life-changing moments, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more. Marcus worked as a maintenance technician at the local community center, a job that fit him like a well-worn glove. It wasn't glamorous, but it allowed him to do what he loved most, to fix things, to build, and to help people. Whether it was repairing a leaky faucet, setting up for a town event, or simply lending a hand to someone in need, Marcus was always there, his warm, friendly demeanor, a comforting and constant presence in the town of Brooksville. He lived in a modest, single-story house on the edge of town, a home he had inherited from his parents, a place filled with the warm, fading memories of a childhood spent playing in the large, oak-shaded yard, a childhood where he had learned the enduring value of hard work and simple kindness. One evening, after another long, satisfying day of work, Marcus was driving home. He enjoyed these quiet drives, the solitude offering a chance to unwind, to let the worries of the day fall away. As he rounded a long, sweeping bend in the road, he noticed a sleek, silver sedan pulled over on the shoulder, its hazard lights blinking a frantic, rhythmic pulse in the dimming light. Slowing down, he saw a woman standing next to the car, her posture a clear signal of distress. Without a second's hesitation, Marcus pulled his truck over behind her as he got out. The woman looked up, her face a mixture of a profound relief and a deep, lingering anxiety. She was young, in her late 20s, with blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her clothes were professional, a pencil skirt and blouse, but they were slightly disheveled, as if she had been struggling with something for some time. Marcus smiled, a kind, easy smile that immediately put her at ease. "No worries at all," he said. "I've changed more tires than I can count. I'll have you back on the road in no time." He walked over to the car and quickly assessed the situation. The tire was indeed completely flat, and it looked like she had been driving on it for a bit before realizing something was wrong. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and with a practiced, confident efficiency, got to work. As he set the jack in place and began to lift the car, the woman stood by, watching him with a mixture of a deep gratitude and a strange, palpable nervousness. Marcus noticed the way she kept glancing around, her body tense as if she were expecting something or someone to appear at any moment. But he didn't pry. He knew that people had their own lives and their own worries, and it wasn't his place to ask. Within a few short minutes, Marcus had the spare tire securely in place. He lowered the car back down and tightened the lug nuts, making sure everything was safe and secure. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small wad of cash. "Please," she said, "take this. It's the least I can do for all your help." Marcus looked at the money, then back at Sarah, and gently shook his head. "I can't take that, ma'am. Helping out someone in need, it's payment enough." Sarah hesitated, clearly not expecting him to refuse. "Are you sure?" she asked. "It's not much, but I really want to show my appreciation." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, a strange, unreadable expression on her face, as if she was trying to figure out what kind of man would so icily turn down money. Finally, she nodded, slipping the cash back into her purse. "Thank you, Marcus," she said again. "I won't forget this." With that, she got into her car, started the engine, and with one last look at him, a look that was a mixture of gratitude and something else he couldn't quite play, she drove off into the growing darkness of the evening. As Marcus climbed back into his own truck, he thought about the strange encounter. There was something about Sarah, about her deep, palpable nervousness that stuck with him. But he shrugged it off. He had done what he always did. He had helped someone in need. And that, he told himself, was enough. As he drove the rest of the way home, the last of the sunlight fading from the horizon, he had no idea that this one simple, ordinary act of kindness was about to change his life in ways he could never have possibly imagined. Marcus woke to the sound of birds chirping, the world outside his window, bathed in the soft, hopeful light of a new day. He went about his morning routine with a practiced, comfortable ease. The memory of the previous night's strange encounter with Sarah Collins already beginning to fade, feeling more like a dream than a real event. As his coffee brewed its rich, dark aroma filling his small kitchen, he glanced out the window that looked over his quiet, peaceful street. The neighborhood was still, with only a few of his fellow early risers out for their morning walks. And that's when he saw it. Marcus frowned slightly, a small knot of confusion tightening in his stomach. He didn't recognize the vehicle. Maybe it belonged to someone visiting a neighbor, he told himself. Or perhaps it was just a random car that happened to be parked there for the moment. He finished making his coffee and sat down at his kitchen table, flipping through the morning paper, trying to push the image of the out-of-place vehicle from his mind. But he couldn't. He found himself glancing back out the window every few minutes. The SUV was still there, parked in the exact same spot, with no sign of anyone around it. The minutes ticked by, and the SUV didn't move. A new, strange, and unwelcome sense of unease began to creep over him. After breakfast, Marcus got ready for work. He grabbed his keys, locked up the house, and headed out the door. As he stepped onto his porch, he glanced over at the SUV again. It was still there, its tinted windows making it impossible to see inside. It felt like it was watching him. Shaking his head, trying to dismiss the paranoid thought, Marcus walked to his truck. He had a full day of work ahead of him, and the last thing he needed was to get distracted by something that, in all likelihood, had absolutely nothing to do with him. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway, casting one last lingering glance at the SUV as he drove away. It remained parked where it was, as still, as silent, and as mysterious as it had been all morning. But as the morning wore on, Marcus found himself increasingly distracted. His thoughts kept drifting back to the black SUV. By lunchtime, his unease had turned into a gnawing, undeniable anxiety. He left the community center to grab a sandwich, and as he approached the local grocery store, his heart skipped a beat. The black SUV was parked across the street. It was the same one, unmistakably so. This was no longer a coincidence. Someone was following him. He stood there for a long, frozen moment, trying to decide what to do. His first instinct was to walk over to confront whoever was in the vehicle. But he wasn't sure if that was the right or the safe move. What if he was overreacting? But deep down, in the pit of his stomach, Marcus knew he wasn't. Instead of returning directly to work, he began to walk in the opposite direction, a test. He took a long roundabout route through the town, passing by the park, the library, and a few other local spots. And each time he turned a corner, each time he checked his reflection in a storefront window, he saw it. The black SUV, always close by, never too far away, a silent, menacing shadow that was now attached to his life. By the time Marcus returned to the community center, his anxiety had blossomed into a real, tangible fear. The rest of the day passed. In a blur, when it was finally time to go home, he felt a heavy, oppressive weight in his chest. As he drove, he kept checking his rearview mirror, expecting to see the black SUV tailing him. But the drive was uneventful. For a brief, hopeful moment, he allowed himself to relax, thinking that maybe, just maybe, it was all over. But as he stepped out of his truck and headed towards his front door, he saw it. The black SUV was back, parked at the end of his street. A silent, dark sentinel watching over his house. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the vehicle, trying to make sense of what was happening. He stood there for a few long, terrifying minutes, debating his next move. Should he go over and confront them now? Or should he call the police? But neither option felt right. The police in Brooksville were good people, But what could he tell them? That a car was parked on his street? And confronting someone who was so clearly and so professionally trying to stay hidden could be incredibly dangerous. In the end, Marcus decided to go inside and wait. He locked the door behind him and walked over to the front window, peering out at the SUV. It hadn't moved. Its very presence felt like a dark cloud, a threat, hanging over his home, over his life. Marcus spent the entire night in a state of restless, agitated wakefulness, his mind a racing, chaotic engine of thoughts and fears. The black SUV and the shadowy figure who had driven off before he could confront them had left him deeply, profoundly unsettled. He couldn't shake the terrible, sinking feeling that something big, something life-altering, was about to happen. Something that would completely disrupt the quiet, peaceful, and simple life he had so carefully and so contentedly built for himself. As the first pale light of morning finally filtered through his blinds, Marcus sighed, resigned to the fact that today might bring the answers he was looking for, whether he was ready for them or not. After his usual, now bitter, routine of coffee and breakfast, he decided to take a walk, to clear his mind, to feel the solid ground beneath his feet. The crisp morning air did little to calm his frayed nerves, but he found a small measure of solace in the familiar, comforting sights and sounds of his neighborhood. Children were playing in their yards, and his neighbors waved as he passed by. For a brief, beautiful moment, it almost felt like a normal day. But that fragile sense of normalcy shattered the moment he returned home. It was then that he noticed something different. Two men, both dressed in sharp, expensive, and identical dark suits, were stepping out of the vehicle. They moved with a quiet, practiced air of authority, their expressions calm, composed, and utterly unreadable as they made their way in perfect unison up his walkway toward him. Marcus's brow furrowed in a deep, confused line. The Montgomery family? The name didn't ring any bells. Yes, Bennett continued, his voice as smooth as silk, as if he could already sense Marcus's confusion. I believe you had a brief and very fortunate encounter with one of their family members recently, a Miss Sarah Montgomery. Marcus's eyes widened as he recalled the woman he had helped on the side of the road. The flat tire, the late hour, her profound, almost desperate nervousness. It all came rushing back to him. Sarah Montgomery, he repeated, more to himself than to the two men standing before him. I didn't realize... Marcus stared at the two men, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. I didn't know, he said slowly, still trying to wrap his mind around the impossible idea that the desperate, stranded woman he had so casually helped was, in fact, the daughter of one of the richest and most powerful men in the country. Marcus nodded, unsure of what to say. The whole situation was surreal. He had simply done what he always did, what he thought was right, helping someone in need. Here were these two men, the polished, professional representatives of a powerful, almost mythical family, standing on his humble front porch. What... What do you want from me? Marcus finally asked, his tone now guarded, suspicious. The younger man, Graves, finally spoke up, his voice firm, direct, and devoid of any emotion. We are here to reward you, Mr. Turner, for your kindness, for your selflessness. The Montgomery family does not take such acts lightly. Marcus shook his head, his mind racing. Reward me? For what? I just helped her change a tire. Anyone would have done the same. Marcus shook his head again, still not understanding, still not trusting. I don't need a reward, he said. I was just doing what I thought was right. Marcus looked from Bennett to Graves, trying to read their impassive, professional expressions. There was something about the way they spoke, the way they carried themselves, that put him on edge. They were too polished, too practiced. He didn't trust them. What kind of reward? He asked, his voice now a low, cautious sound. Are we talking about? Marcus looked from the smooth, practiced smile of James Bennett to the cold, impassive gaze of Mr. Graves. They were emissaries from another world, a world of unimaginable wealth and power, and they had just laid a kingdom at his feet. But in their eyes, he did not see generosity. He saw expectation. He saw the invisible, unbreakable strings that would come attached to their gift. And he knew with a certainty that settled deep in his bones that nothing they offered could ever truly be free. Bennett's smile faltered. Just for a fraction of a second, but he quickly recovered, his expression a mask of polite professional surprise. "Mr. Turner," he began, his tone still calm, but now with a new, sharp edge of insistence, "perhaps you should take some time to consider this. This is not an opportunity that comes along every day, or, for most people, ever." Graves's cold eyes narrowed, and for a moment Marcus thought the younger, more aggressive man might push the issue. But Bennett, ever the smooth operator, quickly stepped in, his cold smile returning, though it was even colder now. "Of course, Mr. Turner," he said, "we respect your decision." Reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, simple, but incredibly elegant business card, handing it to Marcus. "If you should happen to change your mind," he said, "or if there is ever anything at all that you need, please do not hesitate to reach out. The Montgomery family is always willing to help those who show such kindness." As the black SUV finally and silently drove away, leaving him standing alone on his porch, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The Montgomery family was powerful, and he knew with a deep, unsettling certainty that they were not the type to take no for an answer. He went back inside his small, quiet house, the business card in his hand feeling as heavy as a block of gold. He stared at it for a long, long time, debating whether to keep it or to throw it away. Part of him wanted to get rid of it, to sever any and all connection to the strange, intoxicating, and dangerous new world that had so suddenly intruded on his life. But another part of him, the part that was curious and maybe just a little afraid, told him to hold on to it, just in case. Marcus spent the rest of the day in a daze, trying to push the bizarre encounter from his mind. But it lingered, a persistent, unsettling echo. The men's vague, intoxicating promises, the way they had spoken of life-changing rewards. It all felt too good and too dangerous to be true. He lay awake in his bed that night, staring up at the dark, unforgiving ceiling, his mind replaying the conversation over and over again. He was a man who had always valued his independence, his ability to live his life on his own, simple terms. And the thought of becoming entangled in the complex, powerful, and utterly foreign world of the Montgomery family filled him with a deep and profound sense of unease. He knew he could not make this decision alone. He needed the counsel of those he trusted most. The next morning, Marcus reached out to the few close friends and family members whose judgment he trusted implicitly. By the early afternoon, they had gathered in his small, sunlit living room, their faces a mixture of a deep familial concern and a palpable curiosity. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to explain the surreal events of the past few days. He began at the beginning, recounting in detail the story of the night he had helped Sarah Montgomery on the side of the road, and the subsequent and deeply unsettling visit from the two men in the black SUV. As he spoke, he watched their reactions. Derek's brow furrowed in a deep, thoughtful line. Angela's sharp, intelligent eyes narrowed with a lawyerly suspicion, and his Aunt Clara, a wise woman who had seen more of life's ups and downs than most, just nodded slowly as if she had already anticipated exactly where this strange and troubling story was going. When Marcus had finished, a heavy, contemplative silence filled the room. Finally, Angela spoke up, her tone as direct and as cutting as ever. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples as the conflicting opinions swirled around him. He had hoped that talking it out with the people he trusted most would bring him some clarity. But it only seemed to make the decision more complicated, more heavy. As they sat in the heavy, stunned silence, the weight of Sarah's final desperate words lingered in the air. The story was no longer about a mysterious offer or a powerful, distant family. It was now a story of danger, of secrets, of a woman on the run. Marcus stood with his back to the room, listening as the sound of her car faded into the quiet afternoon. And he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that the choice before him was no longer just about him. It was about her. It was his sister Angela who finally broke the silence. Her voice a sharp, pragmatic blade cutting through the emotional fog. Aunt Clara's words hit home, A simple, profound truth that Marcus had known about himself his entire life. He turned from the door to face them, his own expression a canvas of raw, profound conflict. "What am I supposed to do?" he asked, his voice a low, tortured sound. "If I take their offer, I get pulled into their dangerous world. If I refuse, if I do nothing, what happens to her? What if those people find her again?" The conversation continued for hours, a circular debate of fear versus duty, of pragmatism versus compassion. Angela, the lawyer in her shining through, argued for caution, for self-preservation. Derek, ever the loyal friend, argued for action, for protecting the innocent. And Aunt Clara, she just listened, her wise, patient eyes watching Marcus, knowing that the final decision, the one that truly mattered, had to be his, and his alone. That night, Marcus lay awake in his bed, staring up at the dark, unforgiving ceiling as the events of the past few days swirled through his mind. The visit from Bennett and Graves, their intoxicating, dangerous offer, had left him deeply unsettled. But Sarah's story, that had changed everything. The weight of her words, of her fear, now lingered in his heart. As much as he tried to push it all aside, to retreat back into the simple, quiet life he had so carefully built for himself, he couldn't. He couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he accepted. The idea of being rewarded for a simple act of kindness still felt foreign, almost wrong to him. He had always lived his life by a simple set of principles: humility, integrity, and a deep, abiding belief in doing what was right without ever expecting anything in return. But then he thought of the good he could do. With the immense resources the Montgomery family was offering, he could make a real, tangible, and lasting difference in his own community. He thought of the struggling families in Brooksville, of the kids with no safe place to go after school, of the bright, talented young people who would never get a chance at a higher education simply because of their circumstances. The thought of being able to provide for them, to create real opportunities, it was something that deeply, powerfully appealed to him. It was a chance to give back in a way he had never, not in his wildest dreams, been able to before. As the night wore on, as he weighed his own safety against the chance to do so much good, a new, powerful idea began to form in his mind. He would not be a pawn in the Montgomerys' game. He would not be bought. But he would not walk away either. If they wanted to reward him, if they wanted to use their immense power to show their gratitude, then it would be on his terms. It would be for the benefit of his community, not for their own mysterious interests. Later that day, his heart pounding, a steady, resolute rhythm in his chest, Marcus took out the small, elegant business card and dialed the number. His voice, when he spoke, was calm, but it was firm. The voice of a man who had finally weighed with great difficulty, made his choice. There was a long, surprised pause on the other end of the line. He could hear the representative Bennett discussing his unexpected response with someone else in the room. Finally, Bennett's smooth, professional voice returned. "We're listening, Mr. Turner." Marcus took a deep breath and, with a clear, unwavering voice, he outlined his terms. He didn't want money for himself. He didn't want a new house or a fancy car. He wanted the resources to go toward building a new, state-of-the-art community center right here in his own neighborhood. A place where kids could come after school, where adults could access job training and educational programs, and where struggling families could receive real, meaningful support. He also wanted to set up a permanent endowed scholarship fund for the underprivileged students of Brooksville, giving them a real, tangible chance to pursue a higher education. A long, profound pause hung on the other end of the line. Marcus could hear the faint, muffled sound of Bennett discussing his audacious and entirely unexpected terms with someone else in the room. Finally, the representative's smooth, professional voice returned, and this time, the surprise was unmistakable. "Mr. Turner, we appreciate your very community-minded proposal. We will need to discuss this further with the family, of course, but I believe we can come to an agreement." Marcus felt a great, heavy weight lift from his shoulders. He had taken control of the situation. He had turned what could have been a dangerous, corrupting burden into a powerful, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help others. The representative assured him that they would be in touch soon with the final details. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The Montgomery family, true to their word, and perhaps even impressed by his integrity, agreed to all of Marcus's terms. Soon, detailed plans were set in motion to build the new community center and to establish the permanent scholarship fund. And Marcus, the quiet, humble maintenance man, was now at the very center of it all. Working closely with architects, with community leaders, and with educators to ensure that these incredible, life-changing projects would truly and deeply benefit those in his town who needed it most. As the days passed, Marcus noticed a profound change in his own life. The black SUV, which had once been a source of a deep, gnawing anxiety and an unsettling uncertainty, now often followed him as a quiet, almost protective presence. It no longer symbolized mystery and fear. Instead, it was a constant, tangible reminder of the incredible support and the immense resources that were now at his disposal. He had gone from being a quiet, humble man who lived a simple life to someone with the real, tangible power to create lasting, positive change. But despite his newfound influence, Marcus remained grounded. He continued his daily comforting routines. He still stopped to chat with his neighbors. He still helped out at the local church on weekends. He still offered a helping hand to anyone who needed it. But now, he had the means to do so on a much, much larger scale. The community center, once just a dream, became a vibrant, bustling beacon of hope in the neighborhood. A place where people from all walks of life could come together to learn, to grow, and to support one another. The Scholarship Fund, in its very first year, had already changed the lives of several of the town's most promising and most underprivileged students, giving them opportunities they had never ever thought possible. One beautiful, crisp autumn. Day 5, long years after he had first helped Sarah Montgomery on that lonely stretch of road, Marcus stood outside the now thriving Brooksville Community Center. A large, happy crowd had gathered for the unveiling of a new wing. A wing that was dedicated to providing free, high-quality healthcare services to the community's most underserved members. As Marcus prepared to give his speech, he caught sight of some familiar, beloved faces in the crowd. There was his Aunt Clara, her eyes shining with an immense, quiet pride. There were his friends, Derek and Angela, who had both become integral, powerful parts of the community center's operations. And there, standing near the back, a warm, genuine smile on her face, was Sarah Montgomery. Marcus took a deep, steadying breath and stepped up to the podium. As he looked out over the sea of faces, people whose lives had been so deeply and so positively touched by the work they had all done together, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd of faces, people whose lives had been so deeply and so positively touched by the work they had all done together. But the truth is, he continued, a lump forming in his throat, it wasn't just my choice, it was all of ours. Every single person who has volunteered their time, every child who has come here to learn, every family that has found support in their darkest hours. You all chose to be a part of this. You all chose to believe that we could make a difference, that we could build something meaningful together. He gestured to the new, beautiful healthcare wing behind him. This building, he said, his voice ringing with a powerful emotional conviction, and all the others like it that we have been so fortunate to build across this country. They are not monuments to any one person or to any one powerful family. They are monuments to the human spirit. They are monuments to our shared capacity for kindness and for compassion. They are the living, breathing proof that when we come together, when we choose to see the best in each other, and when we choose to work towards a common good, there is absolutely nothing we cannot accomplish. As Marcus finished his speech, the crowd erupted in a massive, heartfelt applause. He stepped back from the podium, and Sarah was there to greet him. They shared a look, not of romance, but of a deep, profound, and lasting friendship. A friendship born from a single, simple act of kindness on a lonely road. He had not lost himself. He'd found a greater purpose. In doing so, he had changed the world, one small town at a time.